Thanks everybody for showing up today. Thanks for showing up to the return of the Sowing Fire podcast.
Hey there. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me? Are we clear? Just I like doing these things a little before the due time, just so we can get all the kinks knocked out. Hello, Sarah. Can you hear me? Is the sound all good?
Can you hear me, Tia?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? We got this all taken care of?
Yeah.
Okay. Dada, it's good to see you. So here we are. Here we are in this new year of 2022. This is big. Like, this is huge, actually, because, think about for a second where you were 2 years ago. 2 years ago. What was happening? What was happening in your world 2 years ago at this time? Just give it a minute. Very few of us have heard of a thing called COVID or Corona at that time. And little did we know that that was pretty much going to impact the entire world. And that was big. And for the people who are here and who are taking steps and being courageous and deciding that this isn't going to be a thing that brings us down. In fact, it's going to be a thing that catalyzes us. This is very important to remember. You're right here. You made it. We made it. So good job. Whew. Just keep getting these little notices of people trying to come on. So just going to give everybody a minute. So the return of the Sowing Fire podcast. We used to do these Thursday evening calls every Thursday for 8 years. And then we decided that, Isadora and I decided that we were going to switch it over into a podcast format. And then the thing called COVID showed up in everyone's world and gave this really big impact, i.e. catalyst. And so then what happened is, in the name of helping people and also taking care of ourselves, we put the podcast on a sabbatical. Because sometimes you got to take a sabbatical so you can step back. You can look at some things. You can refocus. We all go through something like that. Companies go through it all the time when they're rebranding. And as people, as human beings on this really beautiful planet, we all at times have these opportunities to refocus. So if you're here today, thank you. It's the return of the Sowing Fire podcast. And, we're at the beginning of this year. And so why not do something different? Why not do something different so that you can receive something different at this time? And why not start a podcast in the middle of winter and while we're all climbing up out of our catabases? Why not? I think I've gotten to a point in my 43 chronological years of being here that I think I've gotten to a point where I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I'll just listen to my heart. That feels good. And I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty much finished with giving so much precedence over other people's opinions of me. That feels good too. And so on this first transmission, this return, we have Kelly Murphy. Kelly Murphy is pure magic. If you don't know who Kelly Murphy is, you're about to. Because Kelly Murphy has a really great good news story for all of us. She's got a story that's going to inspire us. It's a story that's going to grant each of us an opportunity so that we can feel inspired and then go out in life and be inspiring. You know, you think about the word inspire and aspire. Inspire to breathe out, aspire to breathe into. When you have an aspiration, when you're thinking about your hopes, your dreams, what's really happening is you're breathing into something. And so let me ask you this today, everybody on this live. What are you aspiring right now? What are you breathing into in your world? So Kelly Murphy's here, and we're going to talk about catalysts, because catalysts are those things that happen to us when we're ready to see deeper, or we're ready to move deeper, or we're ready to grow deeper. Catalysts are those opportunities, those situations that show up in life that allow us a turning point. They allow us a crossroads. They allow us a crisis, because a crisis, it literally just means a time to make a decision. And so think about it. Think about all the catalysts that you've had in your world, in your life right now up to this point. Think about the things you've been through. Think about the decisions that you've made. Kelly Murphy,
Mm-hmm.
thanks for
Yes.
being here today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
And Kelly Murphy, what's a catalyst for you?
So originally when I thought about this, I was thinking catalysts are those things that make you grind your teeth that you just want them to go away. And sometimes you ignore them, or you think if they could just move out of your way, life would be better. But as I thought about it, I was like, catalysts aren't just that. They're also sometimes the best things because, I've had some catalysts that were human that I wanted to move out of my way. And then I've had some that were things that were just situations. They weren't people, they were just situations that happened that either put me dead, stopped me in my tracks, and I couldn't literally move one way or the other. So I had to be in it, and that was a catalyst. Um, and so some of them are good things, and they catapult you into even better things. And some of them you sit in for a little while until you stop resisting.
Ooh, wait, can we talk about that real quick? Can we talk about a resistance? Can we talk about a resistance? Kelly, when in your life have you ever started to resist something only to realize, like, when in your life have you had an opportunity, a catalyzing opportunity to present itself, and you could have resisted it, or maybe you started to resist it, but then what happened is you realized the importance of it and the going through it to grow through it kind of situation?
So I have a lot of them.
Hello,
Some,
Scorpio.
for me, it started at a young age, with different people that showed up in my world that I resisted for a long time, years. I mean, literally, I would say one of them I probably just released in the last year, from the age of 5 till now, as resistant of fighting it and when at that young age, and then I was in a car accident when I was 18 years old, and after all that, what I see now is after all that resistance, I fought. That was a childhood stepdad in my life that we didn't get along, and there was a lot of fighting. And from there, I had a high school boyfriend. There was a lot of fighting and resisting, so I spent most of my younger years fighting and resisting. And then the universe said, okay, like you're obviously not going to listen. You're not going to, see this and work through it. So I then got in a car accident, was paralyzed. And so,
Wait, what happened in this car accident? Because your whole vibe changes when you talk about that.
yeah, I thought I was unstoppable up until that moment. Like I really just thought I was living a life of like I wasn't going to school. I was very in a very negative space mindset. And that particular day, I headed out to meet friends. It was a normal day. Had a great meal prior to that, and that was nice, and I will never forget that. The roads were wet, and I hydroplaned and hit a car head on. And in that moment, like I went forward, I went back, and I was paralyzed from the neck down. But it was a week before graduation, and I was literally like hanging on by a thread at that point. Like there couldn't have been one more thing that could have happened. Literally, you know, I was being told you're not going to graduate. You didn't do what you needed to do to graduate. And I had the biggest graduation ever, which was graduating from being paralyzed to walking. And I was
What's it feel like when you're laying in a hospital bed and you have white coats telling you that you won't ever walk again? What does that feel like?
So the interesting thing was I never had anybody per se tell me that. I see my mom on the line, and she literally, by the grace of God, never told me that news. And also, like, I never received that. Um, I knew it was serious. Don't get me wrong. I knew when they put me in the ambulance and they pulled my pants off and I didn't feel it, I was like, oh my, like this is not a good situation that I'm in. But I held strong to I was going to be okay. Like I didn't know the work that I know now, but during that time, I was taking all the steps of just holding on to like I'm going to be okay, everything's going to be fine. So I never went into worry, but
Okay.
I did go into a place where I started to gain self-worth and value for myself, which was something that I didn't have. Up until that moment, I didn't feel I was never alone. And now I'm 18 and I'm literally alone. I'm an adult now. So doctors are coming to me for the answers. They're not necessarily calling mom and saying, hey, like we're about to do this surgery. You know, what do you think? It's like you're 18, you know, your mom might be at work and hey, sign this paper. So it was scary, but I was also it was more the challenge of me growing. It was like a moment of growing up. It was a
It,
moment of I was now going to get the strength that I had never thought I had, the power, right? Like I had the whole time had given my power away. And I'm like, I'm sitting in there and I'm seeing myself for the first time being able to be powerful and choose what I want and watch it happen. And that was a huge catalyst and changed the whole trajectory of my life after that.
that's how we grow, right? Like
Mhm.
we get ready to do something. We get ready to go deeper. And we
Mhm.
say something like, I'm ready to grow in my patience. And then the next thing you know, you find yourself stuck in traffic learning about patience. When you say I'm ready to stand strong. I'm ready to stand in my power. And I mean, how many of us on our own purposeful journeys, how many of us say that? Okay, you know, I've had enough. I've been through enough. I'm ready to stand in my power. I'm ready for it. And then here it comes. We don't ever really know how that's going to express itself, how that catalyzation, in order to wake us up, in order for us to utilize the thing that we're asking more of, to stand in our power, to be more patient, to cultivate our compassion. We don't ever really know how that's going to express itself. What we do know is that if we make the declaration, or if we get to a point where everything is so uncomfortable that we say, all right, something's got to give. We got something new has to show up here. Something's got to change. I'm tired. Or we say that phrase, I can't stand. Be careful with that phrase. Or the other phrase that we really ought to be careful for. I feel it makes me sick. I'm so sick of. I'm sick and tired of. We say things like that, and the universe just hears, okay, 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 you want it, you got it. So we make these big declarations in life, and we say, okay, this is uncomfortable enough, this hurts enough, I'm tired enough of this cycling. We make enough of these declarations, so eventually, life being the 360-degree view of ourselves that it is, that opportunity is going to show up. And so for me, a catalyzation, a thing that's happening, they're not ever bad. Not for me. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't go through things. I mean, I just choose to live life without holding a perspective that, oh, this was so terrible. This is the most horrible thing. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened to her or him or me or whoever. if it's happened, it was necessary to happen because somewhere we were all ready to get refined. Somewhere we were ready for our level up. So the things that are happening for any one of us at any given time, that thing that's happening is the most perfect thing to be happening, because that's the most perfect way that the opportunity presents itself for us to grow through it or grow into it or cultivate it. You see, this is important. You you hydroplane and you hit a car head on, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're laying there, you can't feel your feet, you can't feel when in the ambulance they're taking your pants off, like you can't feel these things. How many of us go through something and maybe it's not a physical, you're not going to walk.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of us go through something where we tell ourselves this is the end of the world? Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this one. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how. That's a big one. I don't know how.
I've done that.
But then we raise up, right? Because then we say, okay, like, I can either lay down here on my back or I can start figuring out how to get up or get up out of it or grow through it.
Mm.
Tell ourselves this. So, okay, Kelly, so you haven't been told this, but you know stuff is serious.
Yes.
And so then what happens?
So I just start doing the steps that they're telling me to do, like, because really I wanted to go home. I remember having a big ego initially. Like they came in the room and they were like,
Oh, those egos.
We want to work with you. Like, what do you want to work on? I was like, this therapist. And I was like, well, let's see. Yesterday I walked. I'd like to do that. That would be a great thing. Like, if we could start there. And they stood me up. And I quickly realized this was going to be more work than I thought. Like, when you're paralyzed, you lose all muscle tone within a split second. So you are reverted back to a child. How funny is that? I literally went back to rebuilding everything as a baby would, an infant, first steps, you know. So I was like, oh wow, I'm like dizzy, and I lay there and I fought it. I resisted that too. I literally spent probably about 3 days fighting it, where they would come in and say, you ready to get out of bed? And I would say no, because I got scared. I'd make up reasons like, oh, I've got a headache today. No, I'm not going to do it. And finally
Which is also, I mean, that's what we do, right? When
Mhm.
we have an intuitive hit or we get one of those big, like, hard encouragements from the universe, and it says, hey, get up. Hey, go do this exercise. Hey, get away from this toxic relationship. Hey, leave that job that you have no passion for. When we get that, and then we start writing this list of why we can't do this thing, why we're not allowed to follow this encouragement. And then it comes to what? It comes to a point where you say, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. Like, I might as
That's what it
well.
was. I was like, if I want to get out of here, I get to start doing what they're asking me to do, even if it's scary. Even, I mean, what else am I going to do? And so I started taking the steps and I started doing what they were asking me to do. And there was stuff, I mean, all of it was recultivating things from my childhood, you know, fears, and each one was presenting itself, and each one I was having to overcome. So all the way down to like wheeling me down to group therapy. And I was in front of groups, you know, and in school growing up, like I had dyslexia and I didn't like being in groups. So now they're wheeling me down to groups and they're having me do certain things in front of people. And a couple times I'm like, wheel me back. I don't want to be here, you know, so there would be this resistance. But all in all, I saw my courage. I watched myself, I almost like as if I was seeing myself from the outside looking in, and I'm saying, look, see, like you are strong. See, look, you do have the power, because up until that point, I was still obsessing with past boyfriend relationships and I was living a toxic life. And so now I'm like, I can do it on my own. Like, I will be okay. And it wasn't until like I had finally walked down the parallel bars and for the first time by myself, like holding on, that we wheeled back to the room, and my mom was sitting there in the chair, we're watching television, and she's like, hey, did I ever tell you that they said you would never walk again? And I was like, what? No, you never told. I mean, I knew it was serious, but they literally told my mother I broke C5 and 6. I sublexed them and I blew a disc out. So C5 and 6 is what controls your hands and arms. And they told my mom that based on that breakage, prepare me for a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And so, yeah.
You know, I love a good news story that requires a little bit of rebelliousness. I
Hmm.
think that we all have. I mean, some of us have a bigger streak than others, but I think that we all have a good, healthy dose of a little rebelliousness, and so it's that rebelliousness that makes her the revolutionary. Meaning, you know, we can stay and we can fight and we can figure out that we can make it out of the bar bra and be okay. But how do we take that energy and how do we take that perseverance and that tenacity and how do we focus that into good things to align to the things that we really want to align to? And so I mean, it was bound to come in one way or another, and that was the most perfect way for you, Kelly. But it takes courage. And of course, when we go to take a different path, you got to remember every path requires an offering. Julie Marie mentioned that to me one time, and it's always been seared on my heart. Every path requires an offering. And so what's the offering? So for you, what do you think you had to sacrifice or put on offer in order to get on that path? Like, you know, you saw us in Peru, like you saw Isadora and I figuring out a divergent, because we were expected to go someplace and at the last minute, external influences, things changed. And so we had to take a different route. And you watched the whole thing. I was sitting there watching your little Scorpio moon, like taking it all in and observing what was going on. What about you? What did you have to give over in order to start this new path? Like, what were your conditions before, and what were they that you had to break through in order to start embracing the power that was coming from this really great catalyst?
So the first thing I think about, because even as I'm telling the story, what I'm even seeing is like how much fighting was the theme in my life. Like I fought and I fought. And obviously to walk there had to be a fight, right? And so that I took that on even harder. Like my ego was like, yeah, like fight, like that's what we do. We're gonna do that. And what I've learned is you don't have to fight. It's that simple. Like it doesn't have to be, I don't have to hold my sword all the time and go into every situation ready for a battle. I spent a lot of my life doing that. And you know, in that situation with being paralyzed, I had to give up graduating with people. I had to rewrite the story that I had said it, you know, oh, it's got to be this perfect way. Like I graduate and I do it this way. And I rewrote that whole story and I'm good with it. I'm good where I sit with it. Like I wouldn't write it any other way. I never saw that being the way that it would go, but even more in the last year, it's giving up the fight. And then that's a daily practice for me. That doesn't, you know, it's one of those things where it doesn't come immediately, and I've had to learn that. You know, I started working on myself, going deeper, you know, 5 years ago, 3 to 5 years ago. And there were moments, even when I went to Peru. I mean, I told you this. I was like, I'm gonna go to Peru. I'm gonna be washed of everything. I'm gonna be Buddha when I leave. Like it's gonna be great. And I was like, no, you got to do the work. I had to do the work to walk. I had to do the work, and it takes work, and it's a daily practice for me to
Just for
choose love
anybody.
first. Yeah, choose love first. Sometimes I still want to go for the sword because that's what comes natural, but I'm like, okay, no, breathe, breathe, be present, you know, come with love. Yeah. And I want to touch on that because it's important, you know,
Go for it.
what I saw in Peru when things started to fall apart, because throughout my life, you know, obviously with catalysts and things happen in the past when things would not go my way, um, I would resist and I would fight. And I'd be like, it's got to go my way. I'm going to call everybody. I'm going to call your manager. I'm going to call, and like freak out. And what I watched was here was, you know, a group of women in a foreign country during COVID. And if that wasn't enough in itself, um, seeing, you know, coming full circle, now I know the whole story. At the time I was only grasping on a few things of the story, which was that the place that we had planned for our journey was a no-go. The place we were going to sleep, not happening. And we were eating. And I'm like kind of picking up on it. And I hear Isadora say, like, you want to go outside and call these people? And I'm like, oh no, something's going on. And you said, nope, I'm gonna sit here and eat and let my food digest. And I'm like, there is no way. I'm like, okay, let's see how her mood's gonna be while she eats. And you continued to laugh and talk as if none of that happened. And I was like, man, I want to get to a point where I can do that.
What,
And I'm getting there.
so the question is, like, what's it do to get upset in situations? And you know, the backstory of that is that literally we had everyone in Cusco, and at the last minute, our next destination, like literally, I had just handed our bag guy the last piece of luggage to go on top of the Sprinter, and Isadora gets this message on her phone that says, and it's our destination, and they say, look, you know, the natives are upset, and we can't accommodate you guys. This is literally as we're getting on the Sprinter to go to the place. They tell us, we're afraid for our business, and we're afraid for our lives, and we can't accommodate any tourists right now. And I just thought, okay. And I mean, in those moments, I can always hear my grandmother laughing anyways. And so what's it going to do to get upset? If I get upset, everything's going to start, like you say, falling apart. There's no reason for that. Why, what kind of blessing or what kind of outcome does that grow if I start to put upset into the situation, when the situation's already got the floor starting to rock anyways? If I get upset, then, you know, then I'm literally on a physiological level, I am depleting my body of oxygen. And when we start to deplete our bodies of oxygen, then what happens is we don't make the wisest of decisions. And I like making wise decisions. So I say, what would my grandmother do? Well, my grandmother would look into all of her network and all of her resources at that moment. What else would she do? Well, you know, we'll take them to go eat, because I'm Southern, and, you know, if you feed people, then you have some time to think about some stuff. And if you have a full belly, then you can think even more because you've got energy and you've got nourishment. So we're sitting there, and Isadora and I just start reaching out in our network, and finally something comes through, and it's perfect timing. And, you know, we go in this restaurant where they're eating cuy, which is the guinea pigs. So everyone's got this experience of guinea pig eating. Like, we went to a cuy freaking buffet, and we're all sitting there munching on some cuy pieces and having a really great time. And as we're sitting there, encouraging a good feeling and good vibrations, of course, a good news story is going to come through for us. That's how it always works. It's interesting to me. You know, Kelly, have you ever had a thing where you've had to walk into an experience and pretty much everyone is it's a pretty hopeless kind of feeling, and then you walk into the experience, and then what happens is you start injecting your presence into it, and then what happens? But you get out and you're all good, but then other people are looking at you and they're like, well, it's not happening for me. And it's like, they don't understand, if you plant that seed of doubt, or if you plant that seed of fear, that's what you're going to grow. So here comes Kelly Murphy on the scene. She's throwing in some seeds of love, some seeds of hope. And then all of a sudden she's got a beanstalk growing, and off she climbs up out of this. Have you ever seen those situations? And then people look at you like them still in the cave or in the hole or wherever they are. They're looking at you like it's your responsibility when you threw them the seed.
Absolutely. I mean, work comes to mind. I sell homes. I mean, I've had to learn to, you know, I'm in a sales environment, and, you know, there's old ways of, I call it the old ways of sales, which is funneling and cold calling and doing everything from a place, I would say now, of lack, not enough, and fear. And that's the training that's being trained to salespeople, is to do it that way. And that's not the way that I do it. And so, you know, it's unorthodox, I would say, like you do. So sometimes it's hard for me to put it into words for them. It's like, I've had to tell my boss, like, hey, like I'm gonna sell these houses, but what I'm gonna need for you to do is not to put the fear and the worry on me. And when we cannot do that, I promise you we'll sell the houses. And we have. I've had I actually looked at it, and this year I doubled my income by 35%.
Good
And the
job.
truth is, I've had moments, I'm gonna be honest, I've had moments where I've kind of reverted and had to like readjust. And every time that I went back into that place of fear, my sales would stop, my flow would stop. And for the longest time, this is a pattern that I would go through because I'm a pretty good manifester. Like I can manifest. But I didn't understand the whole thing until the last year. I didn't really get that piece of like, I would say, I just want the formula. Why sometimes good and sometimes bad? But just like what happened to you at the restaurant was happening all the time in my life. Like I'd be in flow, everything going great. And I might get a homeowner send a mean message and threaten to contact my boss, and then that would just I'd go into freak out, like, oh no, no, like panic, and the sales would stop. And so what I've had to learn was just to stay in flow. I just keep planting seeds of abundance. More is coming, more is coming. No problem.
Everything, everything is working in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. If people, seriously, as a tipping point, if enough people in population ever just decided to wake up one morning and I'll say, you know, I'm worth it. I'm worth it today. This world would change like right in front of us. I mean, it is changing in front of us, but it would change even more. It'd be that lightning medicine in front of us. But that's the thing. When we have catalysts, when we have whatever's happening in our lives happening, I'm about to give a look. Look. When we have whatever's happening in our lives, and yeah, I don't know everybody's story. I don't know what you are going through personally. But I can tell you that no matter what it is, it's here to help refine you. It's here to heat you up enough to be able to knock off the burrs and have a smooth, polished finish. It's happening because you're ready for it. Now, it might not always feel good, but think about it. When do we make changes? We, we don't wake up, have really great days, and at the end of that really great day where everything's just falling into alignment, we don't have a great day and then go, gosh, like I wish this would change. God, I can't wait for this to change. I can't wait for all this greatness to stop.
Yeah, no.
But we do that when we start injecting fear into something. And so, in the same vibe, just at the other end of the pendulum swinging, what happens is when you find yourself in a catalyzation, and when I say catalyst, I mean a situation that's happening right now, an obstacle. Some people still call them problems, working through conditions. You've got an issue. Whatever it is you want to call it, what's happening is you're being granted an opportunity so that you can grow, so that you can expand, so that you can apply something that you've just remembered or something new that's shown up on your scene. You can apply that wisdom, that information, and as you apply it into your practical application, meaning as you apply the things that you know in your daily life, what happens is you start to grow. This is how we get wise. This is how we grow, is by facing these situations, because these situations are our catalysts. It's powerful. It's powerful work when someone decides, hey, something's got to change here. And like I was saying before, the tributary, something's got to change here, meaning we make changes typically when it's uncomfortable enough.
Yes.
Kelly, what are your strengths from doing this work, just doing this work for the last year, like us working together? What are the strengths that you've remembered and or cultivated, developed? What's the strengths that you've gotten from doing your own self-work?
Learning to live more intentionally, being present. I mean, just in the last few months, I've really actually grasped what does it look like to be present. to not be in the future, to not be in the past, worrying about a thing I said and worrying about what's coming, but physically just be in the moment, trusting that it's all unfolding perfectly. Um, love. Love is the biggest one. Like I said, putting the sword down, not fighting, showing someone love, breathing through it when I have a tendency in the past to want to fix and want to
Oh, are
like,
you a fixer?
oh yeah, yeah. I want to help. It looks like help, but it acts like fixing. It's kind of like that, packaged with a nice bow.
Wait, Kelly, hold on. For
Mhm.
anybody else who's a fixer, like you're a fixer, can you just hit your little heart or little button down at the bottom? Uh-huh. Oh, we're all fixing. Okay. You were
Yeah.
saying, Kelly.
And so for the people in my world, my family, right? Um, they viewed it as me controlling and judging. And so I'd keep trying to fix, and that was how I showed love. And I'd like, I'm fixing, I'm helping. And they're feeling like she's choking us out and she's trying to like, we're not good enough. And so there was a battle happening. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, I don't understand why they don't see my love, why they think this, you know? And I've had to learn to do it differently. And it looks like, being quiet, letting them talk, like, shutting my mouth and trying to just listen and breathe. And that's me being present at the surface level. Like that's,
How about hearing heart?
yeah,
You know,
listening to my heart too.
when people say I don't know what the next step is, the next step is to just sit down wherever you are and hear your heart. Well, I don't know how to listen to my heart. Okay, then take it a step before that. Start holding value about your own capabilities. You can't hear your heart if you're telling yourself, oh, I can't hear my heart. I can't hear my heart. If you say that, then guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to hear your heart. But if you take it back to value, I'm worthy to get through this. I'm worthy to see a thing. I'm worthy to listen to my heart. I'm worthy for my heart to show up here so I can hear what the next step is. When you start holding value, then that next thing starts to reveal itself. The same way that we tell ourselves, okay, I'm ready to stand in my power. I'm ready to do this thing. I'm ready to cultivate this strength.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
it's been good. It's been real good. Yeah.
So presence.
Hmm.
Presence is a way. What else?
Like I said,
Value,
love,
presence.
um, be feeling worth it to even do it, feeling like I deserve. Deserve has been a big one. I constantly have to remind myself like I deserve, um, and I'm good enough. I'm worth it. I have to remind myself of all of those things. And
If
so
you
all of
had
that,
it to do over again, Kelly, would you do it?
I would absolutely do it. I would, there's not one piece of it that I would change. Obviously sharing about the finances and seeing the increase in my bank account, that's one thing to jump off and be like, yeah, I'll do it again. But more than that, so I would say that I started this journey for myself, and I knew what I was capable of. I knew that I could run businesses and I could do all these things, but without self-worth and value, I wasn't making it happen. So I was like, I'm ready to start working on me. So I started going deeper. But even more than that, I've realized that what is more important to me is breaking family cycles, helping my family, creating a new generation for my kids that doesn't look the way it looked for me. And that's happening. And so would I do it again? Absolutely. If it meant that I could be of service to my family, that's most important to me. I mean, our journey has been over 2 years. My first encounter with you really in person was coming off of a plane into a foreign country where people thought I was nuts. Like they're like, "Do you know these people?" No, I don't, but I felt the call, and I've been somebody who does follow my intuition. I
It's
do.
important. Like,
Resist
would
sometimes,
you
but I do.
agree? Would you agree that life becomes way more enriched if you start to take note of those little encouragements and those steps and you take those steps?
It's a lot more fun too. Like, I used to be somebody who wanted to control. I didn't say this, but I saw that somebody wrote it on here. It's funny that I don't even have it in my notes, but I arrived in Peru to meet you, but my luggage didn't come with me. So that was fun. So not only did I
Which is
like,
also highly symbolic, right?
it was, and I resisted that and I had to learn. So working with you has been a lot of hands-on, unorthodox things that, it's not like, here, go read this manual and, get back to me. And, it's not that. And it's the way I learn, and I appreciate it because like I'm always listening and I'm always watching and I'm like, oh, okay. Seeing it that way. From there, working and going into an apprenticeship, like I'm the type, I'm like, I may be different, like I'm all in, like I'm like, all right, like I met them, it's safe, like I'm gonna go all in. And
Thanks.
to then asking you to come out and be with my family, which, I was thinking before getting on the call, I'm like, this could have like a 3-part series to it because literally like so much has happened, all good and all, growing and doing that. But it started with a kickstart, I think 2 years ago, to you, a few months ago around Christmas, visiting my family for 11 days and just like immersing yourself in it, and more so again for myself to help me see what I haven't been seeing and get a better idea. And
And do you
that's
see
been
the
really good.
results of that? Like, do you see the
Yeah.
results of your consistency?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good job. Good job. It takes courage. It it
Hmm.
it takes
Yeah.
so much courage to do self-work. And I can't
Hmm.
quantify it. I can't say like, oh yeah, you'll grow in courage like 3 feet of courage every day. I can't do that. That's not how it works. But it takes courage. But I can also tell anybody, the more courage that you tap into, the more courage that you choose to utilize, what happens is you get rewarded on that. And of course, egos, because egos go into self-punishment mode. So there's going to be few people who listen to this and they say, well, I'm not doing it to get a reward. No, you're not doing it to get a reward. That's great. And also, for your efforts, you receive an energy for that if you allow it. And that energy received is tapping into your power, realizing more and more about your power, because I don't think we necessarily grow in our power. I think our power is always infinite, but we grow in realizations of that power. We put ourselves in situations that once we get through that situation and once we've applied the information that we have, which then becomes wisdom, then what happens is we grow. We grow on the realization of truly how powerful we are. The more actions you take in courage, which just means to take action from the heart, the more action that you take in courage, the more reward, the quicker life turns around, the quicker you find yourself out of the situation that you didn't really want to be in, but you realize that I can't fight it. And so you went through it and you grew through it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, working with you has allowed me to uh, see magic, like see the magic inside of myself, like literally help me to remember that it starts with me. And it's not a superpower, it's not a like magic. I say magic, I don't mean like, oh, we're just gonna like make it happen. It's waking that magic up in ourselves to see that we had the
Nope.
power the whole time, like the
It's
Wizard of
always
Oz kind of
you.
stuff.
You will never hear me be like, oh yeah, like you use my magic, you use my power. That's why I love our group journeys. That's why I love when we meet in that foreign country, whether it's Peru or the Yucatan or Ireland or any other place. And I think it's always an interesting energy because people will show up. And on the first like 2 days, I will hear, oh my gosh, Tia, you're magic. Like Tia, you make magic. But by the third day, people are starting to get that it's not just me, it's them as well. And whatever magic they see in myself or Isadora or anybody else, what they're really seeing is a reflection of the magic that's inside of them.
Yeah.
Louise, I'm watching you on the bottom of the
Me
screen.
too.
The courage is scary but needed. Yeah, the courage is scary but necessary.
Yeah. She
I
had a lot
mean,
of it.
I'm thinking about you, Louise. Like, I'm thinking about us taking those horses up to Alsongate. I'm thinking about those 3 little witches, those 3 little grandma witches, watching that whole scene transpire with you, myself, the whole group. the dog, the kid, and that giant magical mountain. It is so interesting to me when people start to realize, oh, that's my magic. I mean, not like me, Tia. I'm speaking for you guys. That's my magic. That's me. I'm seeing it in that one over there, and I'm seeing it in this situation over here because it's inside of me.
And how
We're
we're
all
all a
reflections.
reflection. Even in the group, it's like somebody would have a moment of their, awakening power or what have you, and it'd be like, man, I'm feeling that in here. Like it was all intertwined. And I've been on several group things, Peru, I've been to Colorado a couple times, and they're all the same. And you're right. It's like you come into it, and then before you know it, you see yourself in each person. And you're like, all right, like I see why the
Ooh.
energy shows up. Oh, that's me over there. Oh, wait, that's me over there too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love watching people get it. And I
Hmm.
don't mean get it like get it out here. I love watching them see it within themselves and then how they carry themselves afterwards. That's that's a powerful That's a powerful movement when someone says, okay, I'm worth it to make change. Okay, I'm worth it to be consistent. Okay, I'm worth it to start looking at my mindset in presence so that I can start making these changes and pivots and moves in my life so that my terrain, what I'm seeing out here, starts to change. And it goes from things that I'm resistant to or that I've been fighting to a reflection of my own peace with those things. That's powerful. Kelly Murphy, it is always a pleasure to share space with you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yo,
much.
thank
It was a
you.
pleasure
Thank you for
to be
this.
on the call and be asked to do this. I'm very
Thank,
grateful.
thank you for having such a great good news story and a reminder for all of us to be inspired by. That's what's going to help this world get better, everybody. Is the more that we can align with those good news stories, the more we start making our own transmission a good news story, which then the more reflections we get as our good news stories. You guys want to learn how to make miracles? You want to learn how to align your dreams, you want to learn how to do things. I mean, we have courses throughout the year. Check them out. Dream weaving's coming right up. Remembering to love and being ready to love, that's coming out right now. We're going to Peru this year. We're going to the Yucatan. We're going to the Southwest. I think there's 2 positions left for that one. Like, there's things that are happening. So if you sit back and you say, I don't know where to start, well, you start from right here. That you always start from right here. And if you say, well, I don't have, guess what? You won't have it. But if you
I want to say something about that real quick because
go
that
for
I
it,
was thinking
please.
so many times in my life when I have said I didn't have, the moments when I put it all on the line and I was like, I don't see it back here. I don't see it wherever, but I know this feels right. The moment I signed up or I did a thing, it started right then. Um, I talk about 35% increase, but that's not even talking about the mailbox money that literally just showed up from being in flow. That
Like, literally,
literally,
like, you weren't expecting this, right?
yeah, like I literally had a lady send me Venmo. She asked me for my Venmo, and I'm like, okay, well, the only thing that comes from Venmo is money, as far as I know. Like, she's asking me for it, so I already kind of knew for sending a text for her. She sent me $500 for literally all I did was connect her in a group text. And she was like, you don't know how much you helped me find a house. I wanted to rent. I don't rent houses. I only sell them. So I just connected her to a person. She literally sent me $500. And I'll be honest, for a moment I resisted. I'm like, oh, Venmo, what? No. And then I was like, no, this is my flow. And this is how it works.
This is
And
how it
yes, I
works.
could have sat back months ago and looked at the cost it would take to go to Peru, which was very reasonable, I must say. But,
Thanks.
I could have looked at that and I could have sat in that. And I was like, no, like the moment you sign up, the moment you're willing to put yourself on the line or put it all out there, that's when the universe is going to show up for you. The more you sit in the lack and I don't have and it's not my time, it's just longer. It's in the resistance. And I've sat there and yeah, that's all I can
You
say.
know, in Indian shamanism, and we'll wrap this up. Thanks, everybody. In Andean shamanism, they say we have three worlds. We have the Kai Pacha, which is the here world right now. And then we have the Hanak Pacha, which is the above world. It's like the heavens. And then the other world is called the Uku Pacha. And the Uku Pacha literally is the inner world. And what they say about the Uku Pacha is that all all warriors eventually find themselves in the Uku Pacha, the inner world, but no warrior ever leaves the Uku Pacha. So if you're looking at that like with fear, then you're, oh, I don't want to go in the Uku Pacha. I'll never be able to leave. That's not what I said. I said you won't be able to leave the Uku Pacha as a warrior. We go into the Uku Pacha, we go into our inner world so that we can learn, like Kelly said today, to lay down our weapons, to stop being so dang defensive and resistant, to stop taking offense of things, and to make our peace. And once you've made peace, then you graduate up into the Hanak Pacha. Then you get to go up in the other outer world, above world, and you get to utilize your all your magic and all the things that you've woken up and cultivated. I love that. I love that picture, that no warrior can leave the Ukupacha, because in the Ukupacha, in the inner world, is where we make our peace. On the inside is where we make our peace. So, Kelly Murphy, thanks for being you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for this.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for this return of the Sowing Fire podcast and all these good news stories that are showing up. I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Kelly Murphy, as always, thank you. You
Thank
guys,
you.
thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening up and being receptive and just living this life and being radiant and radiating all of that heart light that each of us possess. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being what's going to help make this whole world better as quickly as we can remember that we're worth it and we deserve it and our future generations deserve it. Y'all take care, and until next time, this is the Sowing Fire podcast. So long, everybody.